I'm James Lynch, and this is my stock report for UFC Vegas 89, taking a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event, and the thumbnail always gives it away, but my biggest winner from this card has got to be Payton Talbot. Impressive, dominant win over Cameron Simon going into this fight. I certainly got this fight wrong going in on picking this fight. I know Talbot was already favored going in at -150, but this was a fight to see who the better prospect is, and clearly it's Payton Talbot from bell to bell, completely dominant here, and actually going in and finishing Cameron Simon like this, extremely impressive. Simon, of course, coming off that loss in his last fight to Christian Rodriguez where he missed weight. A lot of people saying, oh, because of the weight miss, that was one of the big reasons why he lost, but to go out there and get finished for the first time in both pro and amateur, extremely impressive there for Payton Talbot, who now climbs to 8-0 in his career, 25 years old. This is a guy to keep an eye on for sure in the bantamweight division, and a division that's already sort of going through some changes. You've got O'Malley as the champion, you've got some contenders chomping at the bit. This is a really good news for the bantamweight division, and it's a tough loss here for Cameron Simon. I'll talk about what's next for him in a little bit, but again, I just think this shows that the UFC has something here in Payton Talbot, and he certainly made me a believer. So to me, Talbot's got to be the biggest stock riser on this card. Again, he was favored going in, but he didn't look like it. He looked like a -300, -400 favorite in this fight. Really big win there for Payton Talbot. Okay, let's get to our next riser on this card. And to me, it's someone that I thought was going to win and came through as an underdog, and that is Youssef Zalal. Improves to 14-5-1 overall. Again, another dominant performance. That's what's going to get you high up here on the stock report, is if you go out there and you dominate your opponent. And that's what he did as an underdog coming in. We know the circumstances going into this fight. He was supposed to be in the Ultimate Fighter and couldn't get to train too much because obviously he was waiting to hear if he got the call or not. And then he does find out he gets the call, and he takes advantage of it, taking out a tough veteran here in Billy Quarantillo. I want to say that's Quarantillo's first submission loss in the UFC. Let me double check that. Yes, it is. That's the first submission loss of his entire career, so that adds even more to Zalal getting the win. And talked about it before. Zalal had a bit of a weird run in the UFC the first time he had to fight Ilia Topuria. I mean, you look at some of the names that he's fought, but you just saw how confident he was. Just looked on point. Again, he looked great tonight. And again, because he's relatively young, 27, well, not too young, but I'd say getting closer to his prime here. He's a guy to keep an eye on in the featherweight division, just with, again, his overall record, who he's fought. And again, you go out there and you finish a guy like Billy Q. Extremely impressive there. So Youssef Zalal also getting a high stock rise on this card. And then the other one we'll go with is Rose Namajunas. And this is more from an optics perspective as opposed to how she actually performed herself. Good win, not great win. I mean, if she had gone out there and finished Rebus has been finished before. Macy Barber's finished her. Marina Rodriguez has finished her. If Rose would have gone in there and finished, I would have probably had her higher on this list. But, she got the win. Rebus had that one good round in the third round, but Rose was pretty much in control of this entire fight. She gets her first win at flyweight. There was a lot of narratives going into this fight. I saw a lot of people on the Rebus side saying that Rose is done. She's not in it mentally, all this different stuff. I don't think it was her best performance, like I said, tonight. But her stock rises for the simple fact that she won a fight in the main event, and she won it without any questions asked. I mean, I don't think there's anyone out there that felt that Rebus won this fight. Like I said, the one round you can give Rebus is round 3. Outside of that, I thought Rose looked great. Getting it done. Not the most entertaining or exciting fight. This certainly did not win fight of the night, but again, optically, Rose has a win now. She is a former strawweight champion. That puts her, I would say, in that contender spot. This was a main event, 5 rounds. She calls out Macy Barber. That's a fight that could happen, right? It realistically could, just due to the fact that again, the title's all tied up right now with Valentina and Grasso filling tough 32. You got Blanchfield and Manon Fior coming up this Saturday. So Rose is a little bit behind. And plus, she just got her first win as well at flyweight. So that could be a fight next, is Rose Namajunas and Macy Barber. I am totally here for it. I don't know if they trained together. I know Macy was in Colorado for a bit, but I think she trained at Factory X. I don't think she ever did any training with Rose. So that's always something that comes to mind when you're sort of thinking about stuff like that. Let's talk about some other honorable mentions here, ones that did not make the top 3. Usually we just do a top 3 here on this list. You got to give Edmund Shabazian his credit. Shabazian looked like he was done early on with AJ Dobson, cracking him pretty good, but he comes back and he wins. And first knockout loss for AJ Dobson in his career. So that's got to count for something, right? First loss. His other losses were decisions. So Shabazian lives to see another day. I still have a bunch of question marks about him. But you do have to say that his stock went up here. It's still only 26 years old, but bouncing back from, like I said, the loss to Hernandez, him finishing AJ Dobson certainly, puts him in good standing. Yeah, not going to be lighting the world on fire with that performance, but he did get the finish at the end of the day. It was a nice comeback. I can't ignore what Fernando Padilla did in his fight as well. Again, very dominant here. First round submission win over Luis Pajulo. And as you can see here for Padilla, still relatively young, 27 years old, but nice bounce back from that loss to Kyle Nelson, right? I think the thinking after the Kyle Nelson fight is like, man, is this guy even that good of a prospect? But he proved that tonight. Again, really, really good bounce back win. Favorable matchup for him. What was he going in? I want to say he was like a 2-1 favorite, maybe. It was only -165, so even better. So yeah, Padilla certainly has to get some stock riser cred there. How about Yarno Aarons taking out Steven to win as an underdog? I saw some people on Aarons going into this fight, so all the credit to him. But he was +150 taking out Steven to win. He's got to get some props as well. Speaking of comebacks, Julian Arosa getting the submission win over Ricardo Ramos. Another situation, fighters dropped. He comes back, gets a submission win. Very big there for Julian. Obviously, everyone's talking about his post-fight interview. Maybe we can get into that on tomorrow's Q&A. Yeah, that was good for Julian. Again, he doesn't have that great of a chin, so the fact that Ramos couldn't capitalize and take him out, and Arosa comes back and gets the win. Very, very good there for Julian Arosa. And then we'll go with Mick Parkin as well, climbing to 9-0, taking out Muhammad Usman, who was on a bit of a win streak coming into this one. If you remember, Usman, I think, had won, how many straight? He had won, if you go back to the Ultimate Fighter, he had won 5 straight. So that's a really good win there for Mick Parkin, remaining undefeated in Usman. Back to the drawing board there. So that's your biggest winners on this card. The biggest stock droppers on this card, fighters that, again, did not look so good on the card. First and foremost, we got to start with Billy Q. And I like Billy Q a lot. I hope he's able to learn from this, come back from this. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the industry. But the fact of the matter is he's 35 years old right now. He was a betting favorite going into this fight, and he got dominated by a much younger fighter on short notice. Quarantillo had the full camp, Zalal didn't. Tough loss there for Billy Q, who has just been really inconsistent. You look at this win, loss, next fight, let's hope he gets the win there. But yeah, to me, he was the biggest stock dropper just for the simple fact that he was supposed to win this fight and he didn't. And it wasn't competitive, in my opinion. I thought Zalal sort of took him out pretty good. So Billy Q is going to be the biggest stock dropper in terms of, again, name value on this card and everything else. Next one, as far as stock dropper, has got to be Cameron Simon. You do wonder, and I don't know if this is a management or coaching decision, but why, kind of looking back, why did he take this fight? I don't know if he didn't have a choice, but you just came off a loss to Christian Rodriguez, where that your opponent came in overweight. You figured he'd get maybe another Terrence Mitchell type fight where maybe an easy win, and then he fights a guy in Payton Talbot who, again, it just looked like the UFC was saying, okay, we need to see who the better prospect is. And obviously that's Payton Talbot, but he's 23 and now he's got back-to-back losses. You got to be really careful with what you're doing with Cameron Simon's career going forward, because this is a stoppage loss. That's never looking good when it comes to getting finished in a fight like that. So that's a tough one for Cameron Simon. I would hope they give him, because you want to build guys up like this, right? Especially, he's Dracus's teammate. Obviously, he's from South Africa. There's a lot of sort of interest in him. But I just, I really would like to see them, do a better job of kind of matchmaking here going forward. But also at the end of the day, Simon's got to win these fights. So you hope, because of this loss was a little bit worse than the last one, he goes back to the drawing board and learns from that. Still a big Cameron Simon fan. I did pick him in this fight. Admittedly, I got this one wrong, but I think he can come back and make some noise at just 23 years of age. And then the other stock dropper on this card has got to be Amanda Rebus, just for the simple fact that, look, I didn't think Rebus was going to win. I saw, like I said, it's a lot of people picking her, mainly just fading Rose. But at the end of the day, this is an opportunity that she was not able to capitalize on. It would even be better if this fight was closer. Let's say Rebus won maybe a round, or she obviously won the third, but let's say she won some other rounds in this fight and maybe was, had Rose in any sort of danger. You didn't really see that too much tonight, right? So it's another key loss here. We know the story with Rebus. She can beat the fighter she's supposed to beat, but then when she gets that step up, like Marina Rodriguez or Caitlin or Macy Barber, she tends to lose here. So Rebus, 30 years old. It's kind of now or never as far as her making a push to the title. This was a tough loss for her in terms of the overall scope of the strawweight division, or flyweight division, I should say, not strawweight. She kind of needed this win, and she didn't end up coming through. So Rebus, also a big stock dropper. Now, this one, the next person I'm about to talk to, this will be in our honorable mentions. I think people would probably maybe even have this person as the thumbnail and the biggest stock dropper on here, because he got released from the UFC, not for losing, but because he bit his opponent, and that is Igor Severino. What is this? Like the Mike Tyson 2.0, and it doesn't help that he's got blood on his neck here. This looks like he's a vampire or something, you know what I mean? Like he's just got blood dripping from his neck there. 20 years old, what are you doing, dude? Get this really big opportunity in the UFC. You win on Contender Series in impressive fashion, and you bite your opponent. Loss, biting. I don't think I've ever seen that before in the UFC. So yeah, he has to be mentioned on here. I'm not putting him as the biggest stock dropper because what stock did he have coming in? I barely knew anything about this guy other than his one fight on Contender Series. He's 20 years old. So I think from that perspective, yeah, like, you know, what stock did he have going in? But at the same time, he got released. I mean, that's a huge deal. But those names I mentioned up before, at least they're more notable, right? Like I mentioned, Billy Q, Simon, and Rebus. Most people know who they are as opposed to Severino. So there we go. And then the other stock dropper I'll just mention as an honorable mention here is got to be Stephen Nguyen. He was favored going in. You know, he's 30 years old. It's kind of now or never for him. Nice win streak coming into this one. He actually, you know, again, he had three opportunities on Contender Series. A long cruise, Theo, and then AJ Cunningham, and then he has his debut and he loses like this in a fight that I don't think he won any of the rounds. I thought Aaron's won every single one of them. So Stephen Nguyen, I should say, another stock dropper on this card as far as overall stock. And like I said, he was supposed to win. What was he going in? I want to say he was like a minus 150 favorite around there. Let's have a quick look. He was, minus 185. So, I mean, come on, you got to win, right? If people are expecting you to win, you got to get it done at the end of the day. So that's my thoughts on everything there. All right. So as I usually do, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who are your biggest stock risers and stock droppers on this card? Would love to hear from you. Honestly, I'm always open to different arguments. Maybe I missed something on this card, but like I said, I'll just quickly recap. Payton, Talbot, Yusuf Salal, Rose Namajunas, biggest stock risers, biggest stock droppers, Billy Q, Cameron Simon, and Amanda Rebus. Those are the ones for me. Again, remember context. That's a big thing here. Like I said, you got to look at, how they were going in, what were the, sort of the narratives going in. That's how I like to do my stock report videos. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.